violence. This was a big day across our country. Both the president and community leaders here in Indianapolis discussing gun violence and the uptick that we are seeing in shootings and sadly deadly shootings. We're going to talk about that with Emily Longnecker, but let's start tonight by bringing in Angela to talk about the weather. We're on the couch.
We're on the couch.
We're both on the couch.
I'm not clear across the studio.
I
don't know what to do.
It's good to have you over here.
Yeah.
We're about 30 feet away from where you usually stand. We thought we'd sort of work on the couch look tonight.
Well, and we were trying to remember, did we start this during the pandemic? Because I don't remember us ever sitting on the couch together doing this.
Right. Yeah. I mean, during the pandemic, you know, we had to stay away from each other, obviously more than 6 feet away. Couldn't sit at the anchor desk.
No.
So you were over in the weather center. I was here on the couch doing Facebook.
Yeah.
And then we've been loosening things up, and now here we are.
Well, and for 6 months I was at home.
I know.
So I was trying to, because I remember doing Facebook Live from home.
Right.
But wow.
I know. So look how far we've come.
Yay.
And what an amazing day today, another warmer day. And I think a lot of people are hearing about this rain, though, that we're going to be getting.
Yes, and I'm going to show you rainfall potential map, but we'll start with a little bit of good news.
Good, good.
If the last couple of days have been too cool for you, we're going to warm it up a little bit. 63 tomorrow at 8 a.m., near 80 at noon, and then high temperatures tomorrow in the, I forgot my clicker. See, that's what happens when
I see some mid-80s.
Okay, you see mid-80s. When you talk to Emily, I'll go over and get my clicker and come back. I remembered my phone because I do want to show you the rainfall potential map, because really that's what most people are talking about. They're hearing about the return of the higher heat, higher humidity, and the rainfall potential. And it's almost going to have this kind of tropical feel. And when we have the tropical feel, oh, you're the best, Nick. Thank you. He's getting my
Director
clicker.
Nick coming in from the control room out of the lens of the camera.
I think it's in the back.
Searching for the clicker as you look at the graphics.
My clicker.
Nick, come on in here on TV.
Now you got to be on TV, Nick.
Yeah.
Unless you throw it.
We have got the best technical staff here. Nick
Thank you,
is our director. There he is, everybody. Nick. He's heading back to the control room. How did we do this without Nick in the control room? We just sit on a two-shot, right?
We would. Well, no, because then we wouldn't have microphones.
Oh, that's right. We do have more people in the building, and so we have young Kyle is running things back there. Another talented staff member.
The luxuries of having more people around. It's crazy.
All right, so now show them what you can do with that clicker.
Yes, now see, when I tell kids at school, I'm like, I use what looks like a garage door opener, and we call it a clicker. The inside TV, here you go. So it is almost going to have a tropical feel, and we had that last Friday night in particular when we get the thunderstorms going and the rain going and over the same area over and over again.
Yeah.
And it looks like a similar setup, not necessarily with widespread severe weather like tornadoes and the wind damage we saw, but a channel of moisture, a tropical channel of moisture that will go over the same spots over and over and over again. That will lead to high rainfall potential. And we're going to go basically Indianapolis north and west for now for that axis of higher rainfall. Locally, we could be in the range of 2 to 4. If that axis of even heavier rain that you see across the northwestern part of the state would shift south, we could have some higher totals up over 4.
Okay.
So really that's the concern as we head into Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And figuring out exactly where this axis of heavy rain sets up is tricky. So we're looking at every piece of data that comes in the next couple of days because people are going to want to do some outdoor things.
Absolutely.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we're going to let you know when there will be some dry breaks, where this axis of heavy rain is going to set up. And it makes temperature forecasting difficult too.
It is.
Because if you're under the heavy rain, you're going to be warm, muggy, 70s close to 80. If you're not in the heavy rain, you're going to be warm, muggy, upper 80s.
Right.
So we could have a temperature spread from northwest to southeast if in fact this verifies. Places like Shelbyville and Richmond and Rushville could be upper 80s. Lafayette could be upper 70s and stuck in the rain.
Wow. Okay. So a lot to talk about,
yes.
A lot to keep track of, and our Facebook friends weighing in tonight. Kathy saying good evening, Scott and Angela. Wilbur saying no sunbathing on Sunday.
Well, you might have an hour or two, Wilbur. We're not calling it a washout yet, but we're watching it closely.
Kathy saying hi to the peeps behind the scene. A big fan of both Nick and Kyle tonight. That's good to see. Jay joining us tonight. Donna is with us. Carolyn, Anastasia saying, very nice studio set, guys.
It is nice.
So Anastasia, really a fan of that, and Mary Jane Gunter saying, glad to see you both within the same camera lens.
Yes, but it is kind of nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to get back to Angela in a moment, though we do want to turn our attention now to the big story of the night, and of course that has to do with gun violence. The president talked about it today, unveiling his plan to try to curb gun violence, and Emily Longnecker joins us from home. And Emily, you are going to be focusing tonight on 13 News at 11, not about the deadly violence that we see here in Indianapolis, but the people who survive shootings. Tell us about your story.
Yeah, the victims who survived. So there was a community-based meeting tonight with Marion County Prosecutor Ryan Mears. And at this meeting, a mother got up and spoke. And her child, 7.5 years ago, was hit by a stray bullet. He was at a birthday party. So he survived, but he's nonverbal and needs basically 24-hour care. So the prosecutor got up and talked about the number of non-fatal shootings we've had this year, 317 so far to date, but they've only been able to file charges in 36 cases. And his thought was, we need to solve more of these cases. And then he kind of broke down why it's difficult to prosecute these cases, why it's difficult to get suspects. He says a lot of times victims don't cooperate. He said that has a lot to do with a lack of trust between the community and law enforcement. So he says we need to build on that, get better at that. He talked about the fact that the victims and the shooters are getting younger and younger. And he talked about the easy access to the firearms that they're having. He attributes that to being able to get guns off of the internet. Basically, he said there are no easy solutions, right? This isn't going to be solved in one meeting. But he said he thinks it starts with better opportunities for people, access to jobs, more resources in these investigations. And he said, basically, until we address the non-fatal shootings, the homicide numbers are going to go up in this city. And he basically said the reason why these shootings are non-fatal is because, either somebody has a bad aim or we have really great trauma facilities in this city that are able to save these victims, these shooting victims. So he talked about using the grand jury more, the prosecutor's office using a grand jury more to compel witnesses that don't want to cooperate to testify. He talked about improving victim outreach to a lot of these folks who are victims of gun violence, and improving the digital evidence gathering. And we know that earlier this month, the mayor announced more funds for better technology at the police department to solve crimes, and more money for community-based programs for people in the community. So it's a multifaceted, multi-layered issue and problem. And again, I mean, there are no easy solutions here.
Yeah, you're right, Emily. Thank you so much. This is an important story. We'll see you for our big story coverage coming up on 13 News at 11. Thank you so much for joining us here on Facebook Live. I do want to also lay out a couple of the other angles to our big story coverage tonight. Emily did touch on the deadly shootings that we're seeing here in Indianapolis. We are ahead of last year's murder rate here in Indianapolis. We had 110 murders in Indianapolis this year so far. We're 23 ahead of where we were last year. Coming up at 11, we're going to look at the different and difficult tasks of tracing guns used in crimes, and we're going to also look at some of the other initiatives that are already underway, and Emily did touch on some of those. We'll look at those as part of our big story coverage tonight at 11. Emily, thanks so much.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, let's go ahead and turn our attention now to the Olympic Games. Here we are on June 23rd. You know what happens on July 23rd? We get the torch going and the opening ceremony in Tokyo. We've been talking about this Olympics for so long, and we're finally here, less than 30 days out. Very excited about watching the Olympic athletes. Of course, Team USA trying to get gold over there. And so one of the things that we've tried to do as part of our pre-pandemic coverage is show you some of the culture, because we want you to understand the country of Japan. We want you to meet some of the people over there. And one of the stories I had a very high interest in doing was really looking at the geisha culture and wanting to better understand what are geishas, what do they do, And so photographer Steve Rhodes and I went over to Japan prior to the pandemic and came back with this story. At night, Kyoto's Gion district might look quiet, even deserted. But veiled behind unmarked wooden doors are very expensive, often members-only dinner experiences. Exclusive evenings hosted by what might be Japan's most famous yet mysterious figures, the geisha. If you're lucky, you'll catch just a glimpse. This is the extent of what most people see of a geisha. Their world off limits to foreigners and Japanese alike. Tokyo's geisha districts, while not as famous as those in Kyoto, are just as historic.
Fukagawa is actually the oldest geisha district in all of Japan.
It's here that we met a woman
My name is Sayuki.
willing to grant access to this secretive society.
I became a geisha 12 years ago.
This Australian's interest in doing a documentary about geishas led to her pursuing the profession as a career. It was a historic move.
I was born in Australia, but brought up partly in Japan. And I am the first white woman to become a geisha in 400 years of geisha history.
Sayuki is both geisha and geisha mom.
So everything is learning by example from the geisha mother.
Sayuki has 3 geishas living in her home, including Tezusa.
She is in her early 20s. She's a university graduate, which is quite common now in our district especially.
Did you have family who were geishas? Or did you know anyone who was a geisha?
No,
She's known as a Mako, an apprentice.
I'm the first.
You're the first in your family to be a geisha.
Yes.
So they learn to wear kimono, they learn to comport themselves in a Japanese environment, how to sit and stand. And at the same time, they're learning lessons, usually from the best masters. Geisha means artist, literally, and that's what it is, no more, no less. Geisha are artists.
Geishas can take up to 3 hours to get ready. That includes putting on the iconic white makeup, a tradition that began hundreds of years ago.
The old-style tea houses were candlelit, so the girls with the whiter faces stood out from among the crowd. White and red, the very black hair is very stunning. It makes any Japanese look beautiful, I think.
The kimono plus the ornaments add up.
When the geisha are fully dressed up, they could be wearing $10,000 worth of work uniform.
Once the geishas are ready, they catch a ride to the evening banquet, which take place at exclusive restaurants.
At a geisha banquet, you see the beautiful geisha kimonos, experience Japanese cuisine and sake, and dance and music. It's like a totally intense Japanese cultural experience.
There are challenges facing this profession. Once there were 80,000 geishas in Japan, now fewer than 2,000. Sayuki promotes the industry on her website. She offsets the cost of training, charging foreigners about $60 to watch the geishas take lessons or get ready for a banquet. And her geishas travel overseas.
We want to do a geisha roadshow in America.
People look at me like
For Tezusa,
idol or kind of celebrities.
Like you're a celebrity.
Celebrity, yes.
This is exactly what she wants to do.
Being geisha is still like dream job.
It's a world of great beauty and poetry. It would be a terrible pity for that to be lost.
So a couple of other things that I learned about geishas. When they were created hundreds of years ago, they all were men. And then there was one woman who decided that she wanted to do this because when they were men, they were more like court jesters and performers and comedian kind of a thing. But then women took it over, and over the last 100 years, the geishas have been all women. I think the other thing that a lot of misconceptions that we have is thinking, well, aren't geishas like prostitutes? That's not the case. There used to be courtesans in Japan back in the early 1900s, where those were high-class prostitutes. The geishas have always been artists, so they're dancers and musicians. And they had an anti-prostitution law in Japan in the late 50s. So I think when people hear the word geisha, they think something that is not what the issue is.
Yeah.
These are performers, artists, and they perform at these high-class banquets. But our cameras were able to capture things that we just don't ever see on TV. So I was really proud of that story. Steve Rhodes did a great job, and we're going to be seeing more stories as we get closer to the Olympics, which kick off on Channel 13 on July 23rd.
Yeah, and they're so graceful and so beautiful.
Oh,
and,
I know.
You know, the artistry and the creativity and the dance and the food. I am sure you enjoyed the food.
Oh, the food is. The food in Japan is great.
Yeah.
I ate so much sushi, I kind of forgot how much we ate. All right, so tomorrow, if people are waking up, what's the weather going to be like tomorrow?
Weather's fine tomorrow. Low 60s to start. We're close to 80 at noon, mid 80s for highs. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. In fact, I've got a rain cloud in the forecast on the 7-day all the way through Wednesday. But and we talked about this during the early news. If you just check back, there are going to be some dry hours. I know it looks like a complete washout, and there is going to be some heavy rain, and that is going to be a concern, and we'll want you to stay weather aware for the potential for several inches of rain. Right now, looking like that axis of heavy rain sets up from about Indianapolis north and west. So you're just going to have to kind of stay with us. We're going to keep you updated. And speaking of Olympics, you know, gymnastics gets underway.
Oh, I know.
I think Men's Day 1 is tomorrow. That's aired on a couple of the other stations. But then we have prime time Women's Day 1 on Friday, prime time Men's Day 2 Saturday, Women's Day 2 with the Olympic team, I assume, being announced on Sunday.
Yeah.
So excited. I follow a couple of gymnasts just because Grace was in gymnastics for so long, and they're getting so excited.
Yeah. Oh, it's so great. And you know the U.S. is going to do very well in gymnastics.
Well, yes.
You know, there's this Simone Biles. I think she's pretty good. This just in. Yeah.
She's pretty good. I think she has 3 tricks named after her.
Exactly. You know you're the greatest of all time when that's the case. All right. Angela will have her 7-day forecast coming up with us tonight when we see you for the big story coming up tonight on 13 News at 11. Thanks for joining us here on Facebook Live.